Now what have I gotten myself into? Years ago, we had our whole stereo redone downstairs up here. And it worked okay for a little while. Like, I never really finished it. That's a whole story that I don't feel like getting into right now. We basically had a head unit here, an amplifier, two speakers, and then two speakers on the bow, as well as a sub. And all of that was running off this little amp. Probably not enough. And the wiring was all kind of weird, and he had it like crossing over in multiple locations. I don't know. But it sounded okay. And then over the years, it's kind of stopped working that well. I'm gonna redo it all. Not completely redo everything, but redo some of it. Years ago, I decided I would purchase another amp to run the speakers up on the bow. And never got it to work right. New Kenwood head unit, a big fan to keep it cool up in there. This bad boy that hopefully is going to solve our issues. Now my thought is this amp will run the 4 speakers up here on the flybridge as well as the sub. That's just a 2-channel, and that I'm going to use to run the 2 speakers up on the bow. I've gone through already and I've labeled which speaker wires go to which speaker. I know all the speakers work. In fact, right now I just have these 2 arch speakers on. The amp isn't even working, but it sounds pretty good running off just this amp. The arch is a surprisingly good bass enclosure. It really, with just these 2 6-inch speakers, I mean, it kicks pretty hard. So I just pulled this out. Wasn't even turned on. I haven't had it on at all. And it's hot. It's like too hot to touch. Not even turned on. This was plugged in, and these were plugged in. It's a sunny day and it's warm up here, and like the arch is warm because this canvas is warm, but this is not even attached to the arch. It's just in this housing. I went with this Kenwood because the price was right and 6 outputs. So I wanted to make sure that we had proper outputs. I didn't need the CD, and I thought about Fusion because you don't need the CD and there's really great remote controls, but really I only want it up here. I don't really have the need to control it elsewhere, and this can be controlled by an app. Oh. All right, it's all cleared out other than the speaker wire, which I'm reusing. I have an extra battery that I could probably somehow wire, put it down there in that mess, wire it up, and get a separate spot here, but then I need to have that. This battery would then need to be on a charger. I don't know, I gotta figure that out. It's heavy. I wonder if it's one of those things where they trick you, just like put a bunch of lead weight in here, because they figure if you think it's heavy, then it must be better, right? She's pretty. Pretty. Should I read the manual? Probably should. Okay, here's the first test. Stereo has power, everything's wired up. MB Quart amp, which is the one I want to run the speakers on the bow, is fully hooked up to all of the speaker wires, power. Now we're going to plug in the RCAs. Turn this on. Just going to Pandora. Okay. So far you're nothing. You got power here. Let's go up front, see what we can hear. Okay. All right. It's a lot of bass, so we're gonna go do some adjustments. Sounds pretty good. Need a little more treble, I think.
Let me see. I can't remember. I received the message and you will play the same.
Yeah, that's way too much bass. All right. I don't think those speakers can handle that much bass. Well, I had to get out the drill. Because I don't know, the hole that the dude had drilled to run all these wires that used to fit 6 only fit 4. So I had to drill another bit, but that's not too bad. The stereo is sounding pretty good on 2 speakers and the sub. The bow speakers work, but I have them turned down so I don't disturb my neighbors. But if I turn it up, I'm just not getting enough power and it's tripping the breaker. Here's my solution. Jumper cables. I'm gonna hook up another battery so that I can run the 1 amp just specifically off of its own battery. And honestly, the jumper cables were the best deal. I could have bought 75 feet of 10 gauge for 50 bucks. I could have bought a whole like amp installation kit, which I didn't need other than the positive and negative cable, for like 50 bucks. Or I got 4 gauge cable for 50 bucks. So I'll go with the 4 gauge. I'll just snip off the clips on the end. So let's see if we can run this through the arch and set up a separate battery. It's working. I'm noticing that this battery is now showing 11.4 volts, which tells me that I'm pulling a lot out and it's starting to cut out. I did purchase a solar charger, and that's my plan, is to just have this little solar charger charge it up. I'm not going to be using it that much. It's really basically for when we go out on the water. Now I just need to figure out how to run this cable. I now have a battery hooked up to run this 1 amp. I don't know how good this battery is. I'm showing 12.2 volts on it. Probably really need 13.5 to run this amp properly, because as I turn it up, I am getting some cutout. But what I'm doing now is I'm making a vent. I have put just an opening vent on one side, and now I'm about to cut a hole right here for a vent. And you can see here, I have a little temperature controller. It's already 42.8 degrees Celsius up there. I have nothing running up here right now. That's just from the heat of the day. This fan should be nice and quiet. It can run all the time. It's gonna be running off Cygnet's house batteries, but I wanted to draw the air across this whole thing because this will get closed up. And so the air will come from that vent there all the way through to the other side. I guess I have it mounted the wrong way. Right now it's sucking air in, and I think I want it to push air out. Just feel like it would be better to draw in air from that side across and push it out this way. There we go. Doesn't line up the same. I had it like perfectly lined up before with these screws, but for some reason you flip it around and it doesn't line up. I'm gonna put a grill over this eventually anyway. So right now I just have these 2 screws. I don't really want to drill more. I think that's plenty. It's nice and tight on there. It's a pretty nice little breeze. This is why you order from Crutchfield. The amp stopped working. Stopped working properly. The fun thing is it turns off when the head unit turns on, and it turns on when the head unit turns off. Crutchfield kindly sent a brand new amp. I'm gonna plug that up and see if it works properly, and then we'll return the old one. So in order to make this work properly, I just disconnected the positive And then this is my remote wire from the head unit. I know it's a mess, just don't judge me on that. Hopefully the new amp, which is the exact same one, will work with the remote and I'll be able to keep it plugged in so that I can close this all back up again. I've hooked up the new amp exactly the way that the old amp was hooked up. Power is on the amp. The head unit is off. It's the exact same issue I was having with the old one. That amp, which is hooked up to the same wire, is off. When I turn this on, that amp now turns on. Same wire. As soon as it starts playing, it immediately turns off. I don't get it. Why are both amps doing the same thing? I'm going to chase this remote wire down. I use the multimeter. Okay, it just came back on. I've used the multimeter and I know that when the head unit is on, I'm getting 13 volts from that remote wire. When the head unit is off, I'm getting 0 volts from that remote wire. Okay, it's working now, for some reason. And here we go. I do not understand this, but as you can see, we have an amp that is properly hooked up, power is on, and then when we turn the head unit on, the amp turns off. I don't get it. This is just a day later. It was working perfectly the day before. Basically, I went and troubleshooted this with JBL for like weeks, including getting a third unit from them. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now on amp number 4. Giving up on JBL, we are going with Kenwood because my head unit is Kenwood and my speakers are Kenwood. So we're going all the same brand so that we can hopefully make this stupid stereo system work the proper way. Kenwood. My amp. It's definitely smaller. Certainly seems lighter than the JBL. Achtung, baby. Looks like an amp. 1600 watts, 50 times 4, 300 times 1. Let's remove that guy. Put this guy in and see how we do. Okay, first issue. Look at it. These are all the screwy things. So what I have to take this little thing out. I have to get like another tool to take this piece off, I guess. Don't like that. That's not a good design, Kenwood. I thought you Japanese people were smart. I'm assuming it's metric, not SAE. Too big. There we go. How stupid. Okay, now I can get to those. I can put this back on. I unscrewed these. I don't know, they don't seem to do anything. Okay. So look at this. This is all the space I have to get a ground wire in. Look at my ground wire. Look at my ground wire. What's that supposed to fit in there? With 4-gauge wire. This is not uncommon for a stereo install. I can't get my ground wire in there. Gotta figure something out. Well, I'll have to clean this up a little bit. Put some connectors on there, I guess. Whatever, but nothing is touching anything it shouldn't touch. So let's try it out for now. try to do some adjustments on this side. Let's see what happens. Yep. I see no light. It's the way it should be. Turn this on. Assuming that's a light. Yes, that's a light. That's turning on. That's good. Nothing. I don't know why that only goes up to 35. It usually goes higher than that, but oh, there we go. That's full volume. Maybe I need to make some major adjustments to that. But I'm only getting it out of the sub, it looks like. This sub is not working at all. Not doing anything. Power's on. Nothing. No sound. Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you something. It works. This was the solution. Got this a few days ago, put it in, didn't work. Didn't work at all. No sound whatsoever. But I just talked to Crutchfield, and basically the guy on the other end and we kind of like went through some things, and I was kind of troubleshooting at the time. The amplifier is running off of its own battery, and it would not make any sound. But I took a ground wire from the panel that feeds the head unit, and I ran that to the amplifier as well as the ground going to the battery, turned right on and started playing. Must have something to do with the remote wire coming out of the head unit, then going to the amp, and then I guess maybe it needs a full loop, so that's why it had to be grounded to the boat. And I've got all the adjustments made. The guy at Crutchfield looked up my speakers and everything, and he told me, basically start with these settings. These should be pretty close to perfect. And sure enough, they were. So I actually was able to turn the bass, lower the frequency a little bit for these speakers, because these Kenwoods are pretty responsive. Subwoofer there, I'm not really thrilled with the way it's sounding. I might look at putting another sub in at some point, but as of now, it gets pretty loud and it sounds pretty good. And it turns on when it should turn on and turns off when it should turn off. So now I need to just kind of button this up, and one project done. This took me, I was out of town for 5 days, but it took me 2 months to get it working right. But it's working right, and I'm happy. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, you know the drill.